So far in this series, we've already gotten to the point where Michael Pittman Jr., we're all in agreement. We need to re-sign him. So moving forward, we talked about Mike Evans against Calvin Ridley. Who do we want? And between the video and the poll that I put up, the heavy majority of people seem to rather have Mike Evans in that situation. If those are the two guys we could choose from, that's who they would want. So we're once again going to be including Mike Evans in this conversation. But this time we're talking about the guy that I think is probably going to knock Mike Evans out of this conversation. That's going to be Tee Higgins. And of course, with Tee Higgins, there's that element where he might not leave the Bengals, right? He could end up re-signing with the Bengals. That's totally possible. But in the event that he left, right, that's what we're talking about here, speculating. If he leaves, could we get him? And in my opinion, like the way I think of Tee Higgins is like everything that we wish Michael Pittman, and Michael Pittman's great. I'm not meaning to sound like I'm diminishing Michael Pittman, but everything that we wish Michael Pittman could do more of, like Tee Higgins has the ability to do. Now, through the early part of his career, the one thing he's really been unable to do, consistently from year to year is stay on the field and be able to be on the field. But when he's on the field, he's an absolute game changer. And it's not like he's missing a bunch of time with injuries. He's missed games here and there with injuries, but you have to account for a few games a year where he's just probably not going to be with you. So there is that little caveat to Tee Higgins, but again, everything that he brings, the talent that he brings, he's just so good, right? He's been probably the best number 2 in the game behind Jamar Chase over there getting the ball from Joe Burrow. And when you look at his numbers in 2020, 67 catches, 908 yards, 6 touchdowns. 2021, 74 catches, 1,091 yards, 6 touchdowns. 2022, numbers were almost identical. Had 74 catches again, had 1,029 yards, which was a little less, and had 7 touchdowns, which was 1 more. And when you look at 2023 again, he's missed some time this season. Right now, he has 27 catches, 328 yards, and 2 touchdowns. There's also been, up and down quarterback play, even when it was Joe Burrow, up and down quarterback play. Now Joe Burrow's out. So how his numbers looks, I don't know, right? The game against the Bills was the last game that he played. That was November 5th, and he had 8 catches for 110 yards. So this is a guy that can clearly make stuff happen. And when you slot him into the offense, like we've talked about what Calvin Ridley looks like and Mike Evans looks like in this offense, you put Tee Higgins in. Tee Higgins becomes the number 1. You put Michael Pittman Jr. on the other side. And then you have Josh Downs in the slot. You're now coming out with, Michael Pittman Jr. and Josh Downs, and we know how they are, right? But then Tee Higgins is like the best of both worlds for those guys where he can run all the routes. He has speed. He's also 6'4". And can jump through the roof. So Tee Higgins is a do-it-all kind of guy. And having him in there, that's game-changing, especially at his age, right? Going into next season, he would be 25 years old. So this is a guy that could have sustained greatness wherever he goes next. So if he comes to the Colts, I would expect that. You look at, Anthony Richardson can throw the deep ball. He would get the ball to Tee. You have to imagine, with Jonathan Taylor and Anthony Richardson being able to handle the run game, that would open things up for the pass game, and having Tee Higgins and his ability to create separation and get open, he's going to be able to be a safety valve for Anthony Richardson, right? If you just need something, you don't know what to do, just throw it to Tee. He's down there somewhere. And I don't think there's going to be anybody that says Tee Higgins to the Colts would be a bad idea. But really, the numbers are where people might get hung up, because Tee Higgins, you think about what he's made, right? Signed a 4-year contract, pretty much the exact same contract as Michael Pittman Jr., which was 4 years, $8.6 million. And when you look at the top of the market receivers, they're making $30 million a year, $28 million a year, right? And that's Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams. That number continues to go down. Cooper Kupp, 26.7. A.J. Brown, 25. Stephon Diggs, 24. That rounds out the top 5. DK Metcalf is also right there with Stephon Diggs at $24 million a year. So when you're talking about the wide receiver market, this is much different than the running back market and how that works. Teams are looking for wide receivers. So when you have the money to spend, right, and this is the perfect opportunity. You always hear about teams when they have their quarterback on a rookie deal and he's really good, go and spend the money to get him some weapons and help him out. So is that what the Colts plan to do? That is what I think they'll do. And that's why I think Tee Higgins is in play. You know, getting a guy like that is altering the future for your franchise. Right, just like drafting Anthony Richardson, altering the future of the franchise. You bring in a guy like Tee Higgins and what he could do with everything else that's there, right? The partnership that him and Anthony Richardson can have, like that could be special. And that's why I think it's something that the Colts could consider, right? And if you didn't watch the series of Keep Them or Let Them Walk, we talked about paying some of the different guys from the Colts that are going to be free agents in the offseason and who we need to bring back. And after signing all those guys, we'd have somewhere around $35 to $40 million left. So when you start wondering, you know, how much is Tee Higgins going to cost? How much will it cost to get him in the building? That's where, you know, I get hung up, right? Because, you know, I start scrolling down this list and you see guys, you know, Mike Evans' current deal, $16.5 million, but at his age, you would expect he might take a deal similar to that, right? Tee Higgins is going to be wanting more than that. Tee Higgins is going to need more than that. Christian Kirk is getting $18 million a deal with the Jaguars, and that's a good deal for both sides. And Christian Kirk played great last year. He's been playing great this year. So whatever team wants to sign Tee Higgins, that's probably going to be their argument, is the Christian Kirk contract. But then you have a guy like Mike Williams, who's making $20 million a year for the Chargers. He's been up and down in his career, much better of late, but obviously injuries have been a big part of Mike Williams' career. But I honestly think that this is going to be like bottom line what Tee Higgins would want, would be $20 million a year. You know, Keenan Allen, for as good as Keenan Allen is, he's making just over $20 million a year. DJ Moore's been great, making $20 million a year. Terry McLaurin making $22.78 million a year. Debo at $23.85 million a year. So there's a lot of money in the wide receiver market right now. And Tee Higgins, you know, again, I think he's going to want $20 million bottom. Is the absolute bottom. I would imagine to get a guy like Tee Higgins, it's probably going to cost, you know, somewhere in the neighborhood of at least $24 million a year. I wouldn't be surprised if it was more of a $25 million a year kind of thing. You know, a lot like the A.J. Brown deal. 4 years, $100 million. He had $40 million guaranteed as signing, 57 guaranteed overall. And I think Tee Higgins' contract could look a lot similar to that. I wouldn't be surprised if he was able to get more guaranteed money, just because that seems to be the way, you know, a lot of these contracts go. But, you know, again, $25 million seems about like the price for Tee Higgins. We can afford that. The Colts should be able to afford Tee Higgins. Question is, do you pull the trigger on that, right? And how many years do you lock him up? You know, with Anthony Richardson on his rookie deal, but, you know, quarterbacks usually get paid, you know, a year early, maybe 2 years early. So are the Colts going to try to get a 3-year deal? Or are they going to try to lock him up for 4 or 5, right? And honestly, I think if you're going to lock up Tee Higgins and Michael Pittman Jr., you give Tee Higgins a 4 or 5 year contract, give Michael Pittman a 3-year contract, see where we are in a couple years when Anthony Richardson needs to get paid, and then make a decision from there. Then if we bring Mike Evans back into this conversation, if you're asking me, do I want Tee Higgins or Mike Evans? I feel like there's really no question here. It's Tee Higgins. For our current situation, for everything that we have, as good as we could be right now with Tee Higgins in the lineup, like I just imagine what we look like next year, get some more draft picks in, give coach and his staff some more time to get some of their own guys in here, right? Some, you know, lower level guys, some depth pieces, see what they can cook up in the offseason. But I think Tee Higgins should be on that list. I think he should be at the top of the list. We're going to start looking into other positions. But for right now, we're going to keep rolling with receivers and going through the different tiers of receivers and putting a list together for us to talk about more in the offseason. Okay, so make sure you're subscribed with notifications on so that you get notified when all these videos come out. The Would You Rather series is just going to keep on rolling as the end of the season comes. And it's something that I'd like your guys' opinion on. Whatever you're thinking, you let me know down in the comments section. Use it kind of as a voting session. Who would you rather have? Because whatever Colts Nation is telling me, that's what I'm going to run with in the future videos. So again, make sure you're subscribed with notifications on. I appreciate you stopping by for another video. And as always, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and go Colts.